We don't usually fall in love with reality first, but we fall in love with a feeling, an idea of who someone could be or how a relationship should feel, and somewhere between fantasy and lived experience, many of us feel confused, disappointed, or quietly disconnected. And tonight, we're going to explore that space, not to judge it, but to deeply understand it. Welcome to another episode of Pleasure Principles, a space for open, honest, and non judgmental conversations about relationships, intimacy, and conscious connection. I'm your host, Sayan, as some of you would know, and today I'm joined by Samantha Kane, founder of Roots Wings Wellness and a certified holistic life coach who has spent nearly a decade guiding people through self mastery, aligned rituals, and conscious living. Our conversation today is about fantasy versus reality and relationships, how expectations are formed and how they clash with real life, and what can we take away from this conversation. So Samantha, it's a pleasure to have you here on the show today, and I'm excited to see where this conversation ends up in.
Thank you for having me, Sayan.
Yeah, it's a pleasure, Samantha. Likewise, and before we dive in, because I think I have a lot to understand and ask and sort of dive deeper into. But when you hear the phrase fantasy, versus reality in relationships, what comes up for you personally? Not as a coach, I would say, who's guiding her clients, but as a person who's lived and loved.
Sure. I love this question. So, I would say from my personal experience that fantasy to me was believing in something that I thought was reality, but wasn't. Or one could say that it was my reality because I believed it so. It's basically like trying to see something that isn't really there. In other words, more specifically, I would see the best in a relationship. I would see the potential in someone, and I would live out that relationship with me and their potential versus me and the reality of what was really going on with who that person was being. And I lived this way in many relationships. And the problem with that was that there wasn't much realness or there wasn't enough realness. And so it's like me versus like a superhero, let's say. It's just not based in reality. So I was kind of being out of touch with myself. Having reflected on that for many years, what happened for me was I realized it was because I wasn't using my voice enough authentically or genuinely, like just being true to my needs and who I am. And so that was playing out externally in my relationships. And then it was a pattern. But once I brought awareness into it, then I was able to change the types of people that I was allowing into my life.
Hmm. Yeah, I believe that's a good starting point to sort of open up the conversation. And have you watched the movie, out of curiosity, Sing Street? Have you watched it?
No.
Okay, so there's this, as far as I can recall, there's this quote from the movie, where two friends are talking to each other, and so there's this. So the guy actually likes someone, all right, and he goes to the other guy and says, when you don't know someone, they're more interesting. Like they can be anything you want them to be, right? But when you know them, there's limit to it. So what do you think about that? I mean, is that how? I mean, how do you approach that sort of thinking?
I think that's interesting. Um,
Hmm?
I think it's almost okay to be this way when we're younger because we're on this journey trying to find ourselves. So we're not gonna necessarily land this perfect partner or romantic relationship right away when we don't really know who we are yet. And
Absolutely.
yeah, and when you're looking at people as stepping stones. And I mean this respectfully, but it's like you're going through phases. You're trying on people like you would pants, you're trying people on to see how they fit for you. And is it and and to learn what's not a fit and what not to do and the things you don't like and then moving along. And this was something I personally did when I went through a divorce somewhat young in my mid-20s, and then I dated a lot before my next marriage that I'm still in. And it's a success, so that'll be forever, but
Mm.
in between, 2 worlds of marriage, there's stark contrast because I evolved and
Yeah.
I learned so much about myself. I didn't waste time. I knew exactly what the red flags were. I knew exactly who I was enough to not allow anything that wasn't in sync with what I wanted. And a lot of times we're people pleasers. And so we're going through life, we tell people who to be. That's not going to work. You can't control other people. You can only control yourself. So it's
Yeah.
like uncovering more and more and more until you find people, even friendships, that are similar enough. We don't want everyone to be a carbon copy of ourselves because then we don't learn anything. But
Absolutely.
alike enough where there's some like symbiotic flow in the relation, and then the rest of the stuff is just kind of fun, being different from one another, but not
Oh,
like
I
a
love. Yeah.
detriment. We don't want the
Yeah.
differences to be so massive that it makes us shrink who we are. We
Mm.
want to have people that inspire us in all the ways. Let us grow enough to be who we are, but also um take joy in and inspiration in the ways that we aren't and they are. But it's gotta
Yeah.
be
Yeah, that's interesting, right? So the first thing that you mentioned is that it all begins to unfold as you start to, learn who you are, right? What your needs are, because I think you can't love right away if you don't know, who you are, right? That's the footing right there. That I think a lot of people, somewhat rush in, I would say. But it's interesting. So if we stay that for a moment, Samantha, right? Because I also come from a research background, and what I mean by that is, sometimes people won't work for you, right? Like you say, but it's not a bad thing necessarily, right? I mean, there are still findings. So what we call in the research industry are findings. So say we are doing a study on behalf of a client, right? And it turns out the person to whom we are interviewing, or the respondent, is not the right fit, right? He gives us some answer, right? But we don't discard it right away. That's a finding, right? Because we learned something from it, that so we won't go to that direction. We would change our direction. We would course correct. So it's interesting that that sort of mentality also approaches in our personal lives as well. But if we try to go a layer deeper under that, why do you think there's this, all sorts of things about fantasies? What emotional needs are people really trying to meet here?
I think people are trying to feel connected through safety and feeling that they're heard and seen. And that's really the common core that bonds the right partners together. It's feeling safe through connection and feeling heard. We want people that make us feel like we can be ourselves and we can share what we want and need to without judgment, without projection, without interruption, without someone dissecting everything we say, without someone gaslighting us. We just want to speak in a flow where someone is present with us. Because when you take everything I just
Mm,
mentioned away,
mm.
that's usually going to be a toxic relationship. That's usually going to be unhealthy and more often than not unsafe. And really, people want to feel comforted in going through life and all the things that they're going through. And then they want it to be fun. But you can't have joy. You can't pair happiness in any kind of relationship that is feeling unsafe or a space where you just can't be yourself and let your hair down and just talk about what you want to talk about. If you feel like you have to tiptoe into talking to someone about something, that's a red flag. We shouldn't have to adjust our settings in communication where we're not able to just say what's on our heart. So it's
Yeah,
and the
it's
connection,
so important.
it's so important. And so yeah, there's gonna be connection in all these things. Like every relationship has a connection, but it's in a feeling. It's not just 2 people hanging out together. It's literally a vibe. It's the frequency that you're both playing in. And are you even playing? Because if it's not a lighthearted, playful space, then it's a dark, heavy energy, and we don't wanna be in that.
Right. I think that reframes the perspective of why people, usually go into that mode, right? Almost like a clue, I would say, pointing towards unmet needs. And there's also this thing about validation, right, where we're seeking validation from the other partner. So I think that's and now this could pivot to some other, I would say, aspects of the conversation, like, how social media, or what is it actually doing to our minds, right? So, but if we stick to, relationships specifically, for someone who's listening to this, who feels stuck between, this isn't what I imagined, and, I don't want to give up, where would you gently invite them to begin?
I would invite them to say out loud to themselves, by themselves, "I am not stuck." Because no one is ever truly stuck. That's something we want to put a title on. We want to, place ourselves in this, like, holding space, but when you realize that everything is energy and motion, it's just that perhaps you haven't allowed the stagnant energy to flow. It's like a dam. If you put up a dam in a river or some kind of waterbed, it's going to create stagnancy in the flow of water energy. If you lift the dam, the flow is going to continue. It's as simple as that. It's lifting whatever is in your mind that you're thinking is creating you feeling stuck. Stuck is a feeling. Stuck is energy, and it's also something that you're trying to place a title on something where
Hmm.
it's not necessarily that. Anything can find its flow again if you work through the feeling. So I would say to someone, just literally say out loud, "I am not stuck," and then breathe life into some next positive steps and listen to your intuition. Let your intuition be um, your north star, your compass. Allow it to let you know. I've made a lot of mistakes in relationships that at the time, I wasn't very happy with myself because I felt stuck and I felt like, "Ugh, there's no movement here. How do
But
I
there
go back?"
was.
What's that?
But there was, certain movement that led you out, which was not visible at that time.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
that's right.
And so when you're feeling that though, it feels like stagnancy, but I knew that there was an out. I just had to find my way, and I found my way when I decided that that wasn't where I was gonna live, that there I was gonna open the floodgates and I was gonna allow myself to move through. And I did. I listened to my gut because there were many times my gut said, "Don't do this. Don't be with this person. This is the wrong decision." I mean, I won't get into too many personal details, but there are so many things, so many red flags I avoided because I wanted to feel comfortable. I was scared to leave a relationship because it felt, again, felt comfortable. You don't wanna leave your little nook of comfortability, but that's not good enough of a reason to stay in something that is unhealthy or untrue for you. At the end, you need to stay authentic and true for yourself. Even if you have to make hard decisions to move somewhere, you're going to find comfortability again. It just takes a few minutes of uncomfortability maybe to get there.
Yeah, I love that. And yeah, talking about, so if I zoom out the picture a little bit, there's this method that David Goggins wrote about, wherein, he says that um, you can actually trick your mind to get out of the comfort zone. And that is, for example, if you're just laying down, under the sheets and, you're too lazy to do anything, right? Um, What's the last thing that comes to your mind you would do? That is that thing that you should just get up and do. So for example, you don't feel like, doing the chore, right? Washing the dishes. That's the last thing that comes to your mind. And he says you should get up and do it right now. That's how you're getting out of your comfort zone. And I've seen this habit with a lot of these high achievers. They do it. They do it so frequently. I mean, in the routine, and they're like, in the gym, and I look at them, and they're doing something else. They're writing an email. All right, and I'm like, Dude, what are you doing?" And he said, "I have to. This is something I have been neglecting for a while." And I said, "Okay, yeah, sure, go ahead, do it." So I think I would say this is a this is not just applicable to, one sphere of life. I think it's applicable everywhere. And like you said, Samantha, right? If a relationship doesn't work out, there's also a good part of that, which is, I believe, now more red flags, but also you know yourself better, right? But in the sense what won't work out for you. So I think, if someone is listening to this right now and feeling somewhat disillusioned, or heart heavy, what's one compassionate question that they can ask themselves tonight? So what's your take on that?
Um, I would say to ask yourself, is this where I want to be? And be fully honest. I mean, you can even go into a space in your home where there's a mirror and face yourself literally in a mirror and ask yourself, is this where I want to be? Is this who I want to be with? Is this the feeling I want to feel? Those would be the questions because those will allow you to get a deeper understanding into the position that you're in. And I always say this isn't a blame game or anything to feel shameful about. Maybe you're so far deep into something that isn't right for you, but that's okay because I look at everything as a lesson and you should too. It's it's okay to not be in the right relationships. It's okay to make mistakes, and it's okay even if you've had longevity in the wrong places with the wrong people, because we want to learn from those moments in time. But when you know better, then do better, right? So once you bring awareness into how you're being and the patterns you've created and the kind of people you're hanging out with, and you realize these are not the people, places, and spaces for me, then make better choices. Pull yourself out. Life is an adventure for you in this one life, in this one body. We don't need to sit around and just be comfortable. That's not what our life is supposed to be. We're supposed to be where we want to be. And the deeper you are where you don't want to be, the longer it takes for you to be where you do want to be. So make the right choices for yourself, even if it hurts, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it feels unsafe for a little bit of time, you're going to get yourself in the right place. When your body's screaming at you, not even whispering anymore, but it's screaming like, "Get out of this. Don't be here." Do it. Do it for you. Not for anyone else, but do it for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And Samantha, I would now, we are nearing the minute mark, but there's this question that really comes to my mind is that, I think relationships are very much shaped by social media, these days. I would say last 2 decades now. Wherein people are just comparing, their relationship with others, right? And I believe that's a different topic altogether. But how would you tell somebody to not compare, um, you know themselves to their friends who are also in a relationship and so forth and so on, because I think it sets the expectation wrong somewhere down the line.
Yeah,
Because
you're
I think if someone's for example, getting expensive gifts, right? What has it got to do with happiness altogether, right? I mean, if
right.
so, I think setting that benchmark for yourself is something that you need to learn how to do it for yourself, and not set that benchmark on I would say, looking at your friends who are in a relationship. So, what's your take on that?
Well, I appreciate this question actually, and it's not disconnected to the topic of this conversation because it does have to do with fantasy
Somewhere, yeah,
reality. It goes somewhere in here under the umbrella. It's basically that again, it all falls back to knowing yourself so well that you're staying true to yourself. So you can scroll through social media, but you have to do so in a way that you're not comparing yourself. And if you are, these are always the tools that I give to people is only follow people so that you physically only see the people that make you feel good, that make you feel inspired, that make you feel not envious and not angry or not second guessing yourself. The people that make you feel good. Anybody that's gonna make you feel like guilty or shameful or like you're not doing enough, those are the people that we wanna stay away from because anyone that we follow that's inspiring, even if they're doing way more than you or at least think they are, it shouldn't come with a bad feeling. It should come with a, "Wow, good for them. Maybe I'll do that someday." And it's more of a curiosity and a lightheartedness rather
yeah,
than a heaviness around it, you know? So it's
important shift.
yeah, so but that's the point is to create your world, social media included, strangers, acquaintances, and people you know in person, on social media, everywhere in your bubble that your eyes see, your ears hear, that feel good to you, that feel
Mm.
inspiring for you, that set good examples, that positively reinforce the way you want to live. Let everything else go or mute someone or unfollow and you can unfollow people in real life too. We
That's
need
so true.
to detach from the things that don't serve our higher purpose. And then we have this beautiful creation that's all our own of everything that we want in our lives because there's like I don't know who created this idea or thought. It was a saying, but it's the idea that it's like a philosophy that
Mm.
basically anybody the people you surround yourself with,
Yeah.
the one
Oh,
you become, you know
yeah. That's so true.
so let's say you have $6 billion friends or billionaires or and then one guy that works really, really well and has a great life, but he's just kind of lazy, you know? And I don't mean to throw it out like because it's not about money, but for lack of a
Yeah.
better and just a quick example,
Yeah.
But let's say all these billionaires are people that they weren't handed money, they worked for, right? Okay, let's say that. If you surround yourself with these people, these money mindset people, these people that manifest, these people that have done it on their own, these people that don't come from old money or handouts, but they've worked
Mm,
for what they have and they've built from the roots up. These are people you wanna surround yourself with. If
absolutely.
money or not, money has nothing to do with it, not the greatest example. The point is who you surround yourself with is going to enter your subconscious. It's going to be creating thoughts and actions that you're not even aware of necessarily. So we have to be aware of not everything we create in life is conscious. A lot that we do is subconscious or unconscious that we're not even aware of necessarily. So, creating your own world as much as you can, all the rest, all the inner workings, working with the universe is going to be a beautiful thing for yourself.
Absolutely. And that's such an important message towards the end, Samantha. I really appreciate you for taking out your time today and, bringing this kind of clarity and compassion into the mix. So, since we are already near the minute mark, would love to ask quickly that for listeners who resonate with your journey and your work, where can they find you at, or connect with what you're sharing?
Yes, and thank you for having me on today. I can be found on my website at rootswingswellness.com, or I'm on Instagram at rootswingswellness. And I offer a free guide, and I also have a free call for anyone that's interested in life coaching.
Perfect. I'll include the details in the show notes, Samantha. Thanks for sharing them once again. And with that, we come to an end to today's show on pleasure principles. So, thank you all for spending this time with us on pleasure principles. And, like I always say, if this conversation stirred something in, let that be an invitation to, not fix your relationship, but to meet it more honestly. And until next time, just stay kind with yourself and remember that pleasure begins with presence.